our series on the history of Los Alamitos and community. I'm your host, Myrt Perisho, and I've got a terrific group here tonight. They've really got me going, and you'll know why when you hear that it's the volunteer firemen. So this is our second show on the volunteer firemen. We've got Leo Layton and his wife Florence and Tony Campbell. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you.
I'm going to start with you again, Leo. I want you to tell the story of how you got the firemen, the volunteer firemen, to the fire before you even had a building.
Well, that was a kind of a rough deal. We had a truck sitting alongside of a garage down there, and the garageman would get the phone call from Orange or wherever, and he'd go out and try to blow the siren if the battery was up good enough to run it. And then his wife would call some of the women around, and they would call each other, and it was a big phone business. We finally got there. But,
so you call everyone and tell them to meet at the truck?
Usually had to meet there because everything was on the truck. It was a poor old truck.
Good thing you guys were home.
A lot of times they'd go right to the fire, though.
And not to the truck. Mm-hmm. And now it's all beepers.
Pagers we carry around with us, and we know to go real quick now.
Do you ever go on any of the calls anymore? Totally retired?
Totally retired.
Totally. Okay. Lois, Florence. Oh, I keep calling you Lois, but it's Florence. I'm sorry. I knew you're Lois. You are not Lois. Florence, I think it'd be interesting if they heard about how you got your house, how you bought your house, and the story behind it.
Leo lived in the house in 1923, and then my mother bought the house in 1938. And then when we were married in 39, and we bought the house from my mother in 1941. But she bought the house through, it used to belong to Rex L. Hodges' mother, who had bought it for back taxes. So when we bought it, when my mother bought it, she paid $1,800 for it. And it sits on 2 lots. And then we bought it, we probably, I don't know what we paid for it. We bought it from her, but less than what she paid for it. And then paid off the back taxes. It's a 2-story, and I believe it's around the turn of the century. We don't know just when it was built.
So you've lived there all your married life?
Oh, yeah.
Well, and Bessie Yuskevich lived right across the street from you? Bill Pohl right down the street?
Right next, 3 lots down, yes. Before that, I believe before he was married, he lived on the corner house. Isn't it where the apartment is? Or his parents lived there anyway when I moved to town.
The one that had all that glass front porch?
Yes, yes.
And then there's a big apartment building there now. Tony, how about telling us, this isn't fun to talk about, but I think we should get some of the emotions in of a fireman because you sure go through them, don't you?
Yeah, the saddest parts is when it's dealing with children. And I know when we'd go to the station and it would say it's a child in a swimming pool, we'd all hate that. Nobody wants, you got to go, and you do go, and you do the best you can, but they can be real sad. Or they can be real happy that everything's okay when you get there. But that's the scariest, not the scariest, the most saddest I've ever been to.
Most emotional.
Yeah. Especially if you have children of your own at the time, young ones.
Yeah,
that's...
I know, there's so many emotions you and policemen go through.
You keep them in while you're there because you have to, but later it gets to you.
And I just marvel at paramedics.
Oh, they're a lifesaver. Love it. Yeah.
And they just are right
Best thing
in
that
there.
ever happened, and it took a lot of responsibility from the firemen. You were real glad that you thought, oh my God, the doctor's here, and they didn't like that because they said we're not that good either, and it scares them too. It puts an awful lot of pressure on them.
Before that, all you firemen had to be trained. We went through
we were
more
trained
training
on everything.
sessions. It was
first aid, resuscitation, all that. We finally had the resuscitator, Annie. We used to have big games. And
do you have the jaws of life that you always hear about? Is that in? Do they have that in Los Alamitos?
I don't know if they've got it on our units.
No, that's over at Station 17, over north of the...
it's close.
Well, Moody and Cerritos.
Yeah, Moody and Cerritos.
And they come in, any structure fires, I guess they still come to our station. I haven't been there for 3 years. They're on the station. I still know some of the full-time guys and the volunteers. I keep in contact with a couple of them real close.
Well, Leo, what's the worst call you ever went on?
Well, the one that impressed me the most was an airplane that had, it was a student and a instructor that had come out from Long Beach, and it was late in the evening. In fact, it was after dark. And several of the people heard the plane sputtering up above, and they turned and tried to get back to Long Beach, but they got to the San Gabriel River bank, and that's where they hit. And well, we finally got to the thing. We had to go through a plowed field with our trucks and so forth, and it was nip and tuck getting there.
Boy, that'd be hard to get a truck through something like that.
Oh, it
a
was.
Big old truck.
Yeah.
We got there, and there was this pile of wreckage, and at least I didn't know there was 2 men in there until the coroner came, and he looked it all over and reached in and pulled out a billfold, reached out and pulled another one out, and I just couldn't believe that. Well, I was standing there looking at it. You couldn't see 2 people there. They were just mashed together so tight.
Oh, gosh.
And then we went home that night, and some of our wives had steaks. And after smelling those bodies, we didn't want any steaks at all.
Boy, and you went through a lot, too, the wives do. You've got to hand
Oh,
it to
yeah.
the wives and the children of firemen and policemen.
Yeah, it was a dedicated life for the whole family.
Yes, it was. And your volunteers, too. It's a
Yeah.
lot different than doing it now for
That's
union
right.
wage.
Yeah.
Well, there were other plane crashes in Los Alamitos that we got one we were real famous for.
You know, on Tiger Tail.
Yeah, tell us about that
Yeah.
one.
Well, I got home from work, it had already happened, and so I went right down there, and they were just cleaning up then. I didn't hear the roar of the thing go through, but I don't think anybody got injured, except even the pilot came out of it, from what I understand. The Navy was kind of, didn't advertise about that, but the engine went through one garage and another garage and another garage, and I guess it set fire along the street, but it just went parallel with the street, and it really didn't get anybody. And Seal Beach came in, and I remember on that, and then the fog came in. You couldn't see anything. That was quite
right.
a night. It was
In
just
the
the
winter.
evening, and as it got dark, the fog came in. Real heavy fog bank came in on that. If I remember, wasn't it?
I think so.
I remember the pilot, when he parachuted out, landed on a
On a
camper.
van or camper or something.
And I heard a camper shell. With this,
Yeah.
And he said in the paper that his scariest part was jumping
Getting
off
off
the
the-
camper.
he was very lucky.
Yeah, he sure was
He
lucky.
sheared off some of those eucalyptus trees, I guess, when he.
Yeah, that was what started the business, but everybody in that end of town was lucky. There was nobody on the street, and there was pieces just a-flying everywhere.
but-
There was one round piece that went through one garage and up over the next one and into the third one too. And then his engine was over on the other side of the street bouncing around.
Boy, we were lucky. I remember that happened. I lived here then. I thought all the shelves in my garage had fallen. And I lived quite a ways from Yellowtail.
Well, they have chlorine or something in some of those lots over there buried. And I think
don't
it came
know.
real close to hitting one of those.
Oh, good
too.
Lord.
Oh,
I didn't know that.
that.
That's a whole new
Well,
half
they've got,
hour,
like,
Tony.
little water deals. I don't know for
Well,
sure.
there is a fenced-in vacant yard there with some kind of
water pipes or something.
something
coming
there.
out.
That's right. It was close to that.
Well, that, yeah, the pump station. They do
Pump station,
store
probably.
some of their chlorine there.
Well, then there was another plane crash.
No, I think that was before my time. He was
Okay.
in on that.
Well, that was when Rossmore was just getting started. They had the model homes in, and the field to the north was open. And plane left from the air base, and I guess they lost power or something. Anyway, it kind of cartwheeled in over there, and there was quite a bunch killed in it. It just splattered out all over that field there.
I never knew about that until you told me about that the other night.
We did what we could until the military got there. Then they covered the place with foam. And that was all you could
Didn't
see.
they say that tell everybody that was buying there that the Navy base was going to leave? It was going to
Oh, yeah,
close
that was-
down.
Oh. The Navy base was going to leave, and so
Yeah.
that wouldn't happen again.
Right.
Yeah,
Now, that was pretty bad coming
Yeah.
down the new track area,
That's
yeah,
right.
well, there's no houses where it hit, luckily.
but there are now.
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, yes.
That just, well, say halfway from Catella to Bradbury, someplace just in there,
Right
or
in there.
maybe just a little north of the model homes there at Cortez Way.
Well, while we're on talking about Rossmore, I love the story you told me about the fire that you went to when the woman had just moved in the brand new home in Rossmore. Tell us about that.
Well, that was up there in the north end of Rossmore, and well, they were just getting in, and the lady decided she was going to use the oven. She didn't bother to take the cardboard out or anything that was in the oven. And
The instructions?
Yeah, the instruction to everything was still in the oven. And she turned it on, and it lit. And for long, she didn't know what to do, and she called us. And while we was on the way, she grabbed up a little kind of a feather mattress or something, opened the door of the oven and shoved it in there along with the rest of it, and it was cooking good when we got there. So then after we got that out and got that mess cleaned up a little bit, she started out the front door and fainted right in the pile of weeds that was out there. We had to get the resuscitator out and work on her a little bit.
Oh, for heaven's sakes. Yeah. The only fire in Rossmore that one that impressed me most is when McCormick's house burned down. Pat McCormick's house, yeah. She lived across the street from us, and I sure do remember that. And you were on that one?
You were on that one? I don't, it was the first bad one.
Right, the real bad one. She had a second smoldering.
Yeah, that was real bad. Yeah.
But that first one was a terrible fire.
Yeah, it was a bad one, yeah.
Yep, sure
was. It was going.
Yeah, well, they never did really figure out what that one was. Well, tell us what the volunteer firemen had to do with all the floods. This town flooded a lot before '52. What was your role in those floods?
Well, we just helped people out whatever way we could, and well, we was shoveling out some of the houses.
The mud that was in some of the houses.
Mud that was in them and so forth, and then there was over here by the Catholic Church, we set up our pumper one night and pumped across Catella to keep the houses from flooding any deeper on the north side of Catella there at Reagan and Cherry. That was a little low spot there. Where the hospital now used to be it was a couple of feet deep in there at that time. So we had lots of water around here. But,
well, you know what we're going to do now? We're going to break for now and then pictures. Are you ready? There they go. Again with the second half of our volunteer fire department show. And Tony, I've got some names here I want to read to you, and I want you to tell me, these are old volunteer firemen. I want you to tell me what comes to mind when I say their name, all right? Okay. Let's start out with Wes Parker.
He's a lot older than I am.
That comes to mind.
No, what reminds me of him, he was always the prankster, played jokes on you, or you'd leave your shoes in the station and put your boots on and leave. You might come back and have water in your shoes, and just lots of things like that. And we were having a fireman's picnic near the summertime, and we was at one of the parks, and we'd all had our games and played, and they'd all had the watermelon, and they always kept the watermelon in big trash cans with ice and water. And Wes was taking a little nap on one of the lounge chairs, sound asleep out in the sun, and I picked the barrel up and walked over to him and looked around, and everybody said, yeah. So I poured it on him. I thought I'd killed him because he couldn't catch his breath, and it really scared me. But he finally got up and started chasing me and got me and hollered for the guys to come and help him. And they all came over with another barrel and poured it on him. So he had it coming. He still does. But I've never turned my back on him since.
Okay, how about Gene Hines?
Gene Hines was the ones that he worked, I guess, and this was before I was in town. He was one of the older timers. He's deceased now. But he worked at the Dr. Ross dog food plant you guys had here. I remember the big chimney when I first came over and looked at Rossmore models before my track was even started. And he was the one that designed the Orange County Fire emblem. It's the big orange with the badge on it. And
They still use it?
they still use that, I believe.
Yeah,
they
they
do.
do.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, he was on a long time with you,
Yeah.
too, Gene
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, he was assistant chief for quite a while.
His house is right where the home bank
Home
is
bank
right
is.
And then how about Chuck Long?
now. Oh, Chuck is, he was on the station for a long time. He was always, almost even with Leo here, he was always second assistant chief or something. I finally got it one time. And it was a gold badge you got to wear at your
Yeah,
wall at that time. That was, and Chuck is just a great guy, a good citizen. I guess he was always in the city planning, and I think he was mayor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the room. And we've had, since he's moved out to the Corona area, you were just reminding me that we've had some real big parties out there where the people come out for the whole weekend and bring their campers and really have he's got a big cement deal where
barbecues
they
and-
ball barbecue and play
Yeah.
poker until they start screaming at you. You know, I had
Well,
a
we
bunch
played a
young-
lot of games too.
Oh, yeah, there was
Right,
other
a lot of games
besides
too.
that. Yeah, the kids. It was real good for all the little kids.
Yeah,
they got all
right.
dirty and everything, so it was.
And
was real
he's
nice.
in Arizona most of the summer.
Well, he has a place
In
in,
the summer,
Arizona.
yeah.
He has a camp there of some kind.
Them
Yes.
and Leo, God, you guys have known each other for a long, long time.
Oh
right?
yeah. Well, they had the
Everyone
grocery
speaks
store.
highly of Chuck Long, too.
Oh, yeah.
How about Chuck Handy? Or Dave Handy. Dave Handy.
Oh, he was one of the younger ones that got on after I was on. And when the bell goes off, or you learn usually late at night or something, the adrenaline really jumps into your body. Well, this guy just had a triple dose of adrenaline in him all the time. And he was one of the farthest down the street from where we all lived, and he usually was the first one at the station. I don't know if he slept with his socks on or not, because I might ask his wife. But one time it was particular, when we'd warned him that he's driving too fast, you know. But he came down in and he pulled into the station, jumps out of his truck, and he usually left the lights and the door wide open as he ran to get to the state. He got on the truck, the fire truck. The truck came out of the station, came around the corner. His truck had rolled back down because he hadn't put the brake on, and the fire truck had to stop while he got off the fire truck and put his car back in the parking lot. He still hears about that.
I bet he does. Okay, now all these names I've told you I was going to ask you about them, but here's a surprise for you. Tell me about Leo Layton.
Oh, gee,
Oh.
I can't really say this on TV. No, he's a wonderful guy, and I don't think he's got an enemy in the world. And I was just talking to some other people last night about him, and I says I've never heard anybody say anything bad about him. Never good either. No, I'm just kidding.
I think you're right the last time.
I know when I first got on, anything he said, I went and did. I never questioned him.
That's wonderful. When it's your chief and you can have that feeling about it, isn't
it
it?
was a real comradeship there.
Leo, what did you do on your 70th birthday?
I went water skiing.
You went water skiing.
Yeah, I told the kids I'd like to go on my 70th birthday, so they says that can be arranged. So Jerry, he was on the department too for a while. He got his boat out and his skis, and we went down to the Marine Stadium. And I almost drowned trying to get the skis on the first time, and then I took a land start, or close to shore. I got up and went around a couple of times. I used to ski, but it's been many years ago.
Oh, you used to ski.
You ought to be real proud of yourself for that.
What
I can't
a
even do
thrill
that
at
now.
70 you did that. What are you going to do when you're 80?
He wants to water ski.
I
wants
want to go
water
water
ski
skiing
again?
again when I'm 80.
Well, on a little more serious vein here again, you were volunteers for a long time in this town, and then it went to a regular, well, I guess that's what you call regular firemen. They built
They put in a crew that was there
24 hours a day, a
around the
manned
clock.
professional
Man
or
crew.
whatever you call it
Yeah.
station. How did you emotionally react to that when that station came in?
Well, at first it was okay, but then all of a sudden, when you used to wake up, and you might have been the only one in town that was going to get down there, so the adrenaline really pumped. You really felt a desire to be there, really get there, because you might be the only one there and save somebody or save a house. Well, when you got up now, you knew there was already 3 guys there and already in the truck and on the way to the scene. So it kind of cut down the feeling of the responsibility you had towards the community. That's the way I would say it. And it might not have affected
How do you feel,
everybody
Leo?
that way.
Well, it began to, it kind of slowed us up in a way, you know. Well, there's somebody on the way already, so
You don't have to be in such a hurry.
we might finish buttoning our clothes or something like that instead of doing it on the truck or on the way. And
Yeah.
it did really slow us down. It took a little of our thunder out.
And then we had alerters, and you could hear over the alerter what the call was. If it was a rescue, they're already going to be on their way, and all we're going to do is cover the station when we get there. So, like you said, we could tie our shoes and take a little more time before we got there, because we're just going to sit down and wait when they get there.
But if it was a water vac, they leave it for you, wouldn't they?
They would leave that, or we wouldn't go.
The water vacs aren't
Or
popular.
we could just drive by in our cars and look at it.
But you had another side to this, you were telling me, that if you weren't a volunteer fireman, how you would have looked at
Oh, I
it.
think that they responded, especially in rescues and that type of emergency, I think they responded faster than we could physically do it, because we had to get out of, if we were in bed, get out of bed, get dressed, get to the station, put on our turnouts, and get on the unit. Whereas those guys had everything set, and they're out of bed and they're going. So with children or anything like that at home as a parent, I would have appreciated having them there full time,
Yeah.
especially on that type of a call.
Well, I wanted to get clear that there was no
Oh, yeah.
resentment. It was
no
just
resentment.
the
A
feeling.
lot
and-
of them guys are still my
Yeah.
real good friends.
Yeah, the
like.
feeling that it must have gone
Yeah.
through the volunteers when they
I don't
they
think
came
it's
in.
our station that had the same feeling, that went through the same pains either. So I think,
Oh, it was much better for the city when we got those guys there. It was an extra minute or two closer to the
and when
scene.
somebody's not breathing, that can be real important.
Yep,
Oh,
yep.
yeah.
Well, okay, I want to ask you now to tell me about the earthquake. 1933 Long Beach earthquake was a big one. Where were you when that was going on, Leo?
Well, I was out in the back, well, in the lot across the alley where Bill Poe now lives. I was out there gathering weeds and grass for my guinea pigs. And I tried to stand up, and it didn't stand up too good, or I didn't, rather. And I saw the shop wobbling around, and I just didn't know what to do. There was nothing you could do. So I went back to the shop, but I looked in there, and it was leaning pretty bad. But
Now you're talking about the blacksmith shop.
yeah, my blacksmith shop.
Okay, it
there.
leaned pretty bad, didn't it? Tell what your dad did to jack that building back up.
Oh, he got a bunch of telephone poles and cable and so forth, and he went out on the lot that belonged to somebody else on the north side and buried these poles with the cable around them, and then he had a big turnbuckle in there and got it all tightened up. And every time we'd get a little aftershock, he'd go out and tighten those things up, and he finally straightened that building up pretty good. I mean, it would shake itself back into place.
You know, we could do a whole half hour just on that blacksmith shop, I'll bet.
Well, just recently, they tore that building down.
Yeah. Yeah, the big bellows and
years
everything,
ago.
dirt floor, just
Right.
like it was when your dad had it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you were
Yeah.
very generous with the things you did for the community in that shop. I know the museum, Los Alamitos Historical Museum, you made all of our safety things for the doors and everything, and then when you sent us the bill, it just said Merry Christmas. And you did a lot with that. Yeah.
He's done that for a lot of people.
I know he has. Merry Christmas. Gee, we had it budgeted in. Do you have any memories of the earthquake?
No, I was pretty small. I lived in Wilmington, and our house did kind of go off the foundation a little bit, but other than that, I know we went out and slept under the clotheslines with blankets draped over the top, right under the high wires.
Yeah, it was really smart.
And of course, you don't have any memories, do you,
Well,
Tony? But
my
your
mother
mom does.
I was in Huntington Park, Los Angeles, and she gave birth to me in 1933. It wasn't during the big shake, but it was after the aftershocks. My mother tells the story. I hardly remember. But the instruments on the table that the doctor had to have while she was giving birth to me would roll away from the aftershocks, and he'd reach over and pull it back. That's what she tells me.
She just want to make you feel guilty.
Yeah.
Mothers are
Look
good
what
at
you
that.
caused him.
Well, let's get into Halloween. What did you do at Halloween time when you were a teenager, Leo?
Well, we got around, did our share of soap and windows and one thing and another, and then there was one fellow in town that he wasn't very well liked, and come the morning after Halloween, he found a hay rake up on top of his building, and then there was another piece of a wagon or something that was up there. He had the fun of getting them things all down.
He got to where he sat there with his gun.
And would just guard his building?
Right.
Yeah.
Florence, you've got some stories about one of my favorite people in town, Shirley Hubert.
Oh,
Tell her Halloween story.
oh, well, all the young kids in town hung out at the Huberts, down at the corner of Farquhar and Maple. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was Harlan and Shirley and her kids and her brother and, I mean, all the kids, the teenagers. They had water balloon fights. And I mean, this went on for years. I mean, the kids were practically married. Oh yeah, every Halloween. And until I guess the police finally caught them one Halloween and says, hey, you have to knock it off. You can't do it
I
anymore.
understand they caught Shirley and told
Oh,
her she
yeah,
had to
oh,
knock
yeah.
it off. Yeah,
Well.
not the kids.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure,
Well-
it's right there with the
Sure,
with the
Shirley
kids.
is.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
still right there with them.
Right.
Well, I just have loved having the three of you on this show. I just love doing this segment. And I hope that lots of people watch us and lots of kids in the high school see this at the museum. And it's going to Dawson Creek, our sister city. And I think they're going to love the volunteer firemen in this town.
Oh, thank
So
you.
stay tuned. And next week, we're going to have a whole new segment on. And be sure to watch. So long.